everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley May, taking a look at the feature race at Del Mar on Saturday. It's race number 8. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 3 Native Diver. Some nice older horses going 1 mile and an eighth on the main track. Only 6 in here, but there's quality all around, including the Pacific Classic winner, the number 6 Mixto, getting some class relief after being overwhelmed by a fast pace in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I'm expecting this pace to be a lot slower.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go sub 45, but hey, you never know out in California. Interesting group though. You talked about some of the older types in here, even some other names such as Skinner, who was highly regarded last year, and we've only seen him once now in 2024. You wonder if he can get back on track, and even sort of, I don't want to call him a fresh face. He's 6 years old, but Tarantino going to give stakes competition another try. It's been a while since we've seen him against the stakes level, and typically when we have in the past, hasn't been on the dirt, Dan. It's been on the turf.
Even though it's a short field, there should be some early gas as we take a look at our Timeform US pace projector. They expect Mirahmadi to make the front, and why not? They finally stretched him back out around 2 turns last time out. They were very aggressive with him, and he dominated to the tune of a 99 Beyer speed figure. But Tarantino is no slowpoke, and I wonder if he's going to be a lot closer to the pace than Timeform US gives him credit for.
I have to think so, based on those last 2. I understand from the race at Del Mar to Santa Anita, he was stretching out to 1 mile and a 16th, but he went sub 47. He was pressured all the way around the track and very game. So I think he'll be involved. You see Ultra Power up in the mix. I mean, obviously he's a horse just coming out of very fast races where, especially in his last 2, he's been a length or 2 off that pace early on, Dan, and he should sort of be in that same spot, stalking and waiting to make his move.
If the pace is hot, here's the 3 Skinner with the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, coming off a good effort in his first start off a lengthy layoff. That race likely a prep for this longer assignment. Let's start things off with Mirahmadi, who cost a lot of money as a yearling, and why not? He's by the great stallion Into Mischief from a strong female family. It just took him a long time to get through his maiden, as he did last time out, and he was very aggressively ridden. He was taking some heat going into the first turn, and then he just cleared off and said, this is how a favorite's supposed to win. I like the ride, and he handled it very well.
Yeah, it was a really nice performance, and nice to see him back around a longer sort of distance, right? Going out from 1 mile and 16th after those sprint races. And he's had some setbacks. We didn't see him between Del Mar and Pimlico. Then we didn't see him for a couple of months, but you cannot disregard his last out effort, a 99 Beyer speed figure. Part of it wonders, why it took him so long to graduate. I don't know necessarily. I would love to know the stat on how many Bob Baffert horses it takes 9 starts. Typically, we don't see them if they're not going to graduate at that point. They go on to another career. So obviously, he cost the money. He put it together last time out, and maybe he's found what he needs to do, which is go around 2 turns.
The number 2 Ultra Power, Mirahmadi's uncoupled stablemate, has really put it together off the layoff in 2 starts this year for Baffert. He popped a 104 Beyer speed figure at Del Mar and was in cruise control throughout in that 1 mile allowance race, just tracking 3 wide and breezing by. Bob put him in another allowance race at Santa Anita most recently, and Ultra Power ran fine. Baffert told our colleague Brad Free that he didn't run well in this race when finishing 3rd. He had a chance on the outside. He was grinding it out late, and to me, this looks like a horse that's going to stay another 16th of a mile, no problem.
Yeah, I liked his last out effort. I don't mind that he gets beat there. He finishes 3rd. He only misses by a neck. I just thought he was hitting his best strides late there. That was at 1 mile and a 16th. You look at him at the spot, maybe the added ground helps him. And I just wonder, kind of figuring him out now, if he's going to be more comfortable getting the same trip that he's gotten those last 2, stalking the pace, where I feel like early in his career, we do see a lot of Bob Baffert horses. They go to the front, right? A lot of them do. Typically, they also face their stablemates and whatnot. And I just feel like he's seemed to be a little bit more comfortable as of late.
Skinner was 3rd in the Santa Anita Derby at this distance last year, and then 2nd in the Native Diver in 2023 before going on the shelf. And I think trainer John Sheriff's had to be very pleased with his comeback performance. This race going 6.5 furlongs on Breeders' Cup week. He had to deal with a layoff. He had to deal with a short distance, and he had to deal with a pretty sharp winner. He doesn't change leads in the stretch, which is somewhat distressing off the layoff, but he's coming on with a good late run, and I think he gains a lot of fitness from this race and now gets to a more appropriate trip.
Yeah, I don't think they were going out and saying, we're going to win this one. This is a horse that doesn't want to sprint. I mean, we've seen him really sprint twice in his career before then, and they were his first two races. And I think he showed then that he didn't want to sprint. And as you've gone kind of since then, his races, he's been in some tough spots. He's excelled at two turns. And last year he was the runner-up, as you mentioned, but I think they just used that race as a 3-week out prep, right? To get him fit, get him a race under his belt and see what he can do. And obviously he's going to step back up in competition, but considering he's not a sprinter, I thought that race served him very well and kind of what he needs to get back on track in just his second start this year.
Salesman was a graded stakes winner around this time last year, but it's kind of a weird graded stakes race, going a mile and 5/8 on Breeders' Cup week. And since then, he just hasn't been up to snuff. I was a little disappointed in his race in the Cougar the Second because he was getting back to a long distance and he just didn't run very well. And last time out at Fresno, he took no money despite his back class and didn't do much. So he's got to improve.
He's going to have to take a huge step forward. You talked about the Cougar the Second. I think that is sort of my sentiments, right? He was getting what he, or at least we thought what he would need, right? That extra ground, and just didn't do anything in there. And you brought up a great point with his most recent effort as well. And he's had months off in between all of these races, right? And it's funny you mentioned the race, Breeders' Cup weekend at Santa Anita. I was just referring to this race about the long distance, a mile and 5/8. And Flavien, they just let him walk the dog on the front end. They just let him get such an easy lead, and the race was over just as soon as it started. So I don't know what the best sort of trip here for Salesman is. I do like, though, that Kazushi Kimura is climbing back aboard here. It's Richard Mandela. Never kind of discount the work that he does, and maybe they're going to give him another shot, second start in a row off that layoff since July. But a tough sell, knowing that others here have much better for him.
Looks like Peter Urton really made a sharp claim with Tarantino. This is a horse who was third in the Holy Bowl back in 2021, third in the American on turf in 2022. He's now won 2 in a row for Urton, was very, very game to win his most recent race, going a mile and a 16th at Santa Anita. They were stretching him out off of a sprint, and he turns for home down on the inside. It looks like he's in hot water. He's being swamped by 2 other horses. You see higher power on the ultra power on the outside beginning to kick into high gear, and Tarantino just shows no give. This is a very game performance.
Yeah, I love this effort, especially considering he had to stretch back out in distance, right? And he had experience going long, but primarily on the grass in his career. And you brought up a great point about he was claimed for $40,000. I feel like when you see horses that were in graded stakes competition as a 2 or a 3-year-old that were fairly competitive, and you see him for 40, typically the claim isn't going to necessarily get them back to stakes competition all the time. They'll try it and it typically doesn't work, but his recent form is just tremendous and really has taken a step forward. You look at those last 2, by far his 2 best dirt races to this point in his career, in my opinion, from a figure standpoint, and just how he's been able to battle in both of them. He's taken pressure, and that's a lot considering what the race they claimed him out of. He ran horribly, Dan, horribly. And just to be able to regroup in a month's time and get him back on form, I think he's a very sneaky type in here. And especially because he does have that early foot.
Might have been helped by speed tracks in his last 2. We'll see if he can handle the extra 16th, but he is back to his best. Mixto pulled off a huge upset in the Pacific Classic, going a mile and a quarter at Del Mar 2 starts back, and he earned that win because the horse that he has to run down is very, very good. That's Full Serrano, who of course would win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Mixto was pushing him from the start, and it looked like he was being outpaced a little bit at the 3/16ths, but maybe Mixto wanted the distance. Full Serrano didn't want the distance, and Mixto gamely got it done.
Yeah, and I think that's what it came down to. I don't think it had anything to do with either horse's necessarily trip. I mean, yes, Kyle Frey gave this horse an excellent ride in the Pacific Classic, but when you go to Full Serrano, Mailloux Gutierrez, I don't think the horse wanted to go a mile and a quarter. And you mentioned horse goes on to win the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Mixto doesn't fare well in the Breeders' Cup Classic, but he was chasing splits that he had never chased before. So I'm going to completely draw a line through that. I think the question for me will be mile and an eighth. I mean, a mile and a quarter, he's proven. Mile and an eighth, he's been good. But mind you, his mile and an eighth races typically have been against tougher. So I think on paper and the class perspective, he's arguably the horse to beat.
Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 3 native diver. Mixto has the class. He's going to be right there. He might be the horse to beat. I think Ultra Power still has a lot of upside, however, and he was charging hard at Tarantino last time out. This is going to be his 3rd start off a substantial layoff, and I just think a mile and an eighth with his tactical speed, things are going to work out from a trip standpoint.
Absolutely. I just think he's been better around 2 turns. And yes, he was defeated last time out by Tarantino, but not by much, and he was rolling late. So I agree with you. We use the same horse here, both going to try to beat Mixto, and just a little bit different directly underneath. I go to Mixto, but use the one Mirahmadi, who maybe found his calling around 2 turns last time out.
And maybe he's found this calling as just a true speedball where you just let him roll and see how fast he can take this field and how far he can take them. Tarantino's going to provide a little bit of pace pressure, but maybe Mirahmadi's found himself around 2 turns. 2-6-3-5 for Ashley. I'll go with the Baffert exacta 2-1-6-5 in the grade 3 native diver at Del Mar on Saturday. Good luck. Hey buddy, you look like you're in need of a winner, and just remember, if you like and subscribe right over here, you can get all of the great content on DRF.com, including Race of the Day, stakes previews, and lots more, featuring me and my superb selections. Trust me, you're not going to regret it.